Story 1. Dog Park. She was calling her dog, which has a name similar to mine but starts with a different letter, and I thought she was talking to me. I am getting married next week. Story 2. He was my coworker. I joined the night shift and was told to watch out for that guy, my fiancé, because he was off. The only off thing about him was that he didn't talk to me for a full year. Turns out he's shy and likes to keep to himself. I managed to cultivate a friendship with him because I thought he was cool. I did not have a crush on him at that point. So, I was shocked when, after 2.5 years of working with him, I started to have a significant crush on him. Shortly after, we began dating because, as it turns out, he had a crush on me from the day I started working there. Story 3. I noticed him from a distance and had a crush on him because he was attractive. One day at the library, there were no available tables and he was studying there. I approached his table to ask if I could sit with him, trying to appear as if I had just wandered over. He smiled and said, "Certainly." He joked with me a bit, and I became even more smitten instantly. I didn't make a move that day because he was studying, and I didn't want to interrupt him. However, I saw him at the bar weeks later. My friend encouraged me to talk to him, and he remembered me. We had a great connection right away, and it worked out. I adore him. Story 4. Here on Reddit. She was perfectly normal and absolutely amazing, which must mean I'm the odd one. Story 5. He was my brother's college roommate. They were both 22, and I was 19 when I attended a party in their city. I got so drunk that I couldn't remember where my hotel was, so I went to my brother's place to stay on the couch. I ended up meeting his roommate instead. We have been together for 16 years, married for 11, and are expecting our second child. Story 6. We were at the same barbecue event. At some point, everyone left to see the organizer's new car except for her and me. That's when I decided it would be a good joke to put to bed. We became instant accomplices in that prank and have now been together for 22 years with 2 children. Story 7. She was my neighbor and we both walked our dogs at almost the same time every day, but she usually walked hers a little bit earlier. One time, she got delayed, and we ended up leaving our apartments at the same time. That was the first time I actually talked to her, and she turned out to be the funniest and craziest person I have ever known. After that, our initial outings were basically walking our dogs until I found the courage to ask her out on a real date. Then one thing led to another, and now I am writing this comment. Story 8. I met my best friend on the app Hinge, but we had many near chances to meet. We were always just a street away in our activities and social circles. I often wonder if we would have crossed paths sooner. I don't regret using the app. We are going to be married in a few months after 6 years together. Story 9. I was a cashier at a golf range. I wasn't a big person for dating, and when guys would ask me out, I'd say yes and find ways to avoid going. I have a hard time saying no. I remember telling my best friend about a guy who would come in that I thought was super cute. One day he came in and I said, "You again," without thinking anything of it. On his way out, he came into the clubhouse and asked me if he could take me to dinner. I don't know what it was about him, but I was completely serious when I said yes. I was so nervous that I started giving him my mom's number when he asked for mine. A week later, when our date came around, I had worked a 14-hour shift and accidentally woke up when he was supposed to pick me up. Luckily, he still wanted to go to dinner, and we stayed there talking and laughing until the restaurant closed. I felt so comfortable with him. It turns out he had recently quit a cold calling job before he met me, but he credits that job for giving him the courage to ask me out. I still don't know what exactly made me follow through with going on our date. We just celebrated our 6th wedding anniversary and have been together for 12 years. Story 10. I found him on our local community page. He came to my house for a casual meeting. We bonded over how well we connected, and he never left. That was 11 years ago, and we now have 4 children. Story 11. I met her by getting completely lost. I had just moved to a new city and was trying to find an office for a job interview. I walked into the wrong building without realizing it. It turned out to be a community center, which was running an art class for kids. I must have looked out of place because a woman came up and asked if I was there to help. Before I could explain, one of the kids handed me a paintbrush, and I just rolled with it. I ended up staying for the whole session, helping out and cleaning up. She asked if I wanted to grab a coffee afterward. I never made it to the interview, but I got something even better. We still have one of the finger paintings on our fridge. Story 12. I was 12 and he was 13 at a youth group dance. I saw him and immediately looked at my best friend, saying, "I'm going to marry him." We got married when I was 18. We have 2 grown kids and we will celebrate 38 years of marriage in May. Story 13. I had a mutual friend. We went through a terrible breakup at the same time and heard things about each other from our friend. I sent a friend request on Facebook. He immediately accepted it and messaged me. We have never stopped talking since and have been together for 5 years now with 2 beautiful children. Story 14. I was on a break with my band, sitting at a table. She approached me from behind and leaned over, looking at me upside down. "Do you want to smoke a joint?" We went to my van, and she handed it to me. I lit it, took a hit, and passed it to her. She shook her head. "I don't smoke marijuana." Story 15. We met at a house party, and the rest is history. We have been married for a decade and have 2 beautiful children. Story 16. We met at my old house. She was in a similar crowd. At first, I was nervous and ran away from her, and we dated other people. Years went by, and she ghosted me when I was single and more confident. About 8 months ago, we caught up, and I invited her over to see my new place. We ate chicken parmesan on the floor, and then the rest is history. Now, we are moving in together this weekend. Story 17. I was in the Panhandle when I was hit by Hurricane Ivan and lost everything, but ultimately gained a spouse. I was forced to move back into my parents' house. I then ended up at a party hosted by a mutual friend. The party was disappointing, and we were both about to leave when we started talking to each other. The surprising part is that we had known the mutual friend for 13 years but had never met each other. Story 18. He was on the high school basketball team. He smiled at me once. 8 years later, we have 1 child, built our home on land, and started our mini farm. Story 19. I turned my living room into a small gig venue where touring artists and bands would use my space for an intimate concert. A mutual friend brought him along to the show. We chatted, he asked for my number, and the rest is history. Story 20. In the 10th grade math class back in 1994 and 1995, she used to sit on my desk. I would give her rides home, which was only 2 blocks away. We drifted apart and then reconnected in November 2003. We moved in together in January 2004. I proposed in August 2004, and we married in October 2005. We bought a house, had kids, and we will soon celebrate our 20-year anniversary. Story 21. A funny story. I reached out when I was drunk, called her pretty, and said I could totally juggle. I sent it as a voice message, and she replied the next day. We chatted for a week or 2, then went on a date, and that was 7 months ago. Story 22. High school retreat during my junior year with her as one of the senior leaders. Our mutual friend said, "This is the sandwich man. He's awful, so keep your distance." 22 years later, I bet he's a bit angry that she did not heed his warning. Story 23. I added him randomly on Snapchat one day because I looked up my area code and added a few people with 314 in their names. We started talking through memes and he asked me on a date a few weeks later. Story 24. As strange as it may sound, my best friend introduced me to his ex. We are still friends, and she has been the love of my life for the last 15 years. Story 25. I highly do not recommend using POF in general. I had a picture of myself juggling at a Renaissance fair. That made her decide to message me and ask me out. Story 26. My sister met her first friend at university, and they became very good friends. One day, she uploaded a photo with her, and I fell blindly in love. I spent about 6 months looking at her photos and stories. I didn't know how to talk to her until I sent her some sunflowers on the day of the yellow flowers. Since then, we have been talking, and it was the best decision I have ever made. Always dare and be courageous. Those who do not take risks do not win. Story 27. The gym. It was fate. We had actually gone on a first date with other people at the same bowling alley at the same time and ended up in the lanes next to each other. I didn't realize it at the time, but my now husband was frustrated that he was on a date with someone who wasn't me. Fast forward a few months later, after our previous first dates didn't go well, he asked me out in our gym parking lot, and here we are 15 years later. Story 28. His profile quote was, "Everyone has baggage, as long as it doesn't take you 2 trips to get it through the door." We talked on the phone a few times, then met for dinner and a movie. He was so sweet and sincere. It's been almost 25 years, and I still call him my unicorn. Story 29. We met in 6th grade science class and became best friends for 6 years. We both came out at age 17 and started dating. It has been 9 years now, and we have been married for almost 2 years. Story 30. I was his server. It was 8 p.m., and I was on a double shift, really wanting to go home. But he walked in with his 2 friends, and I begrudgingly put them in my section instead of a booth in the bar. We joked with each other the whole time, and I guess we were both checking each other out when the other wasn't looking. He left with his friends, and one of them said, "You didn't leave your number? Go back in there." So he came back in and wrote his number on his receipt. We set up a date that Friday, and the rest is history. A year and a half and a dog later, the receipt is framed and hanging on the wall. Story 31. I met him at my current job. I had been working there for a year when he just started. When I first met him, I couldn't stop smiling, and he thought it was funny and sweet. We were best friends for 2 years before realizing we both love each other dearly. We started texting as friends in 2023 and have spoken to each other every day since. He is my best friend, and I love him so much. Story 32. Dating app. He was okay with me sacrificing him for a good summer. I never got around to cutting his heart out, though. Hopefully, he doesn't see it as a sign that I don't follow through on my goals. Story 33. She was my best friend's girlfriend. As soon as they broke up, I asked her out. We've been married for 46 years this year. Story 34. Middle school. We had 1 or 2 mutual friends but never really talked, except for one conversation I had with her in 7th grade when her boyfriend at the time was yelling at her and then proceeded to ignore her for the entire rest of the day. I caught her after school and told her that no guy should treat someone as sweet as her like that. She actually broke up with him. We stopped talking for about a year or 2 after middle school since she went to another high school. After a rough breakup about 7 months ago, I wanted to talk to her since we had been friends on Instagram and got along really well. We hit it off, and after only 3 months later, this is the happiest, most understanding, honest, and loving relationship I've ever been in. This girl is absolutely amazing. She is a straight-A student, a classical instrumentalist, and loving and accepting of everyone and everything good in the world. She dreams of being a neurosurgeon one day. I couldn't be happier with her. I think the takeaway from this is that love is something that finds you, often at the most unexpected time, in a surprising way, and with a person you have always had a vibe or connection with that no one else has. I hope all the single people in this thread utilize this takeaway because the search for love is hard, and it's a learning process too. When people say the right person will find you at the right time, it's totally true. Love is amazing. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Story 35. Online about 10 years ago, I met my partner through a dating site. Before the world and people became chaotic, it was the best decision I ever made. We are still together and going strong. Story 36. Through a Discord friend, we had known each other for a year before we started dating. After that year, we began dating, and now we are best friends who love each other very much. Story 37. We are in a long-distance relationship. We met on a dating application when he happened to be working in my town for a week. We have been together for 3 years now. Story 38. At the gym, he is a personal trainer, and we would casually say hello. One morning, as I was walking by him, I saw the beautiful sunrise through the front windows, so I stopped to ask if he had noticed. He asked me out the next day, and the rest is history. We have been happily together for almost 8 months. Story 39. He was the new guy in senior year, and we were paired up for a project that lasted the duration of the school year. I had sworn off dating, so I didn't think much about him, but according to him, it was love at first sight. I just didn't want to deal with relationships. I hadn't had a boyfriend or girlfriend yet, and I didn't like the idea of it. The guys in my class were awful. We started talking more, and I realized what a sweetheart and funny person he is. And wow, he's pretty cute too. I tried to friend zone him because I was scared of my feelings, but I talked to some of my friends, and they encouraged me to give him a chance. So I thought about it more, and with Sadie Hawkins coming up, I asked him out. Before this, we formally became boyfriend and girlfriend, but we kept it a secret due to school issues. We had a wonderful time at Sadie Hawkins, and I gave him a kiss on the cheek at the end. Since we were chaperoned by his mom and older sister, I asked him out on a true date for coffee so we could talk more privately. We are each other's first kiss, first boyfriend and girlfriend, first intimate experience, first everything. We've been together for 11 years and married for 7. Our first kiss on the lips was hilarious. It was a total accident. We were still kissing each other on the cheek. I wanted to save my first kiss for the one, and we accidentally met in the middle one time. He thought he had ruined my life, but I hugged him and said, "Let's try that again," and gave him a real kiss on the lips. Story 40, Martial Arts Studio. We were partner sparring when she kicked me in the head with a spinning heel hook. It was super fast with perfect placement and weight. It hit me like a light slap. I thought that was pretty cool. Story 41. On my school campus, our relationship unfortunately lasted only about a month before she decided to break up with me during my junior year to expand her dating options. I guess it's her loss. Story 42. Dating app. The funny thing is we frequented the same locations but just at different times of the day and week, so we always missed each other. Story 43. Through my former husband, we all worked at the same place but in different departments. We have been together for 8 years this year, and we have an amazing 6-year-old. Story 44. We met on Twitter 15 years ago when it was a fun place to be. I brought him from England, and we are getting married this summer. Story 45. She was nursing my brother's quadruplets 34 years ago when I said I would look after them while my brother and his wife went away for a short break. Story 46. We matched on both Hinge and Boo. He reached out first, and it led to us talking on the phone for hours. We are 6 months in and both very happy. Story 47. University. We had the same philosophy class, but we didn't know each other until we met at a vending machine one afternoon. We were unaware we were in the same class because he sat in the front lower level while I sat in the back upper level. Story 48. Online dating. I was about to shut it down as I had no picture on my profile due to privacy concerns. When I saw her profile, I was immediately captivated by her smile. I took a chance and sent her a message, expecting no reply. Almost 6 years later, we are happily married and have just bought our larger second house together. Take a chance, everyone. Story 49. I began my first major job in 2015. Once I got promoted, we were on the same floor, on the same side. We started off as friends, then dated on and off. Eventually, I realized what I wanted and asked her to be my girlfriend in 2020. I proposed 6 months ago. Story 50. We met on a random app called Wakey in October 2020. It started as a casual conversation, but we instantly clicked and continued talking every day. Before we knew it, things became serious, and now we are married. It is funny how the most unexpected places can lead to something so meaningful. Story 51. I walked to my dorm during a blackout and called him short. We've been together for 7 months now. Story 52. I went to a housewarming party for a woman I had just met. My friend came to my house to spend an evening together with sangria and invited this girl along. I was feeling desperate after my recent breakup, so I asked her if I could come to her housewarming party. I received an invitation. It was a gathering for 3 new roommates, and my future husband was one of them. We met in the kitchen, talked a lot, and exchanged phone numbers. After I left the party, my future husband got so drunk that he accidentally wet his roommate's bed while there were guests resting nearby. I fell in love with him after that incident. After 2.5 months, we got married. This year, we will be celebrating our third anniversary. He changed my life, and I couldn't be more grateful. Story 53, Nursing School. I asked my friend to give her my number. She had no idea who I was, but since we were in a small program, she decided to go out for drinks with me anyway. Story 54. We only knew each other's names but somehow fell in love at the same time, which I thought was impossible because I believed he was out of my league. It was our first time dating, and we were both afraid of relationships until then, even though we liked someone and they liked us back. I don't know what came over us, but we are still together 20 years later, married for 12 years with 2 kids. We have never broken up and are still madly in love. Story 55. He bought the house next door to my brother. After meeting once, we began dating 2 weeks later, and within 9 months, we moved in, got engaged, and had 2 weddings. One in Las Vegas and a ceremony with family and friends. We celebrated 18 years on April 21st. Story 56. Currently single, but most of the replies here lack substance. So here's a story about my last relationship that lasted 4 years and how we met. I was 28 at the time and had been single for 6 months. One day, as I was about to engage in some personal time, I had a moment of realization. Enough is enough. I'm ready to have a warm female body in my bed. So, I posted on a local dating forum. I received a few responses and went on dates every week until I met a girl who visited my place. Her message stated, "I'm a 31-year-old Filipino woman." I invited her over, and we circled around a table like apex predators observing their prey as we got to know each other. Eventually, we moved to my bed and started cuddling. Things remained platonic until I looked her in the eye, decided to go for it, and kissed her. She performed oral sex that night, but we did not have intercourse. The next day, we spent the day together and ate some Subway. We had sex when we returned from the park, the local food market, and Subway. We watched movies in my bed. The next day, I said goodbye, and we continued to see each other weekly. Ultimately, we broke up because at 31, and her at 35, she did not want to have children or get married and just wanted something casual. After 4 years, I wanted something more. Story 57. I love the meet cute my wife and I experienced. I was working for Trader Joe's before I joined the Navy. Unbeknownst to me, my wife was waiting for me to leave Trader Joe's so she could transfer to my store. About a year into my time in the military, I came home for a special weekend liberty to be with my mom on the 1-year anniversary of her husband's passing. We went to Trader Joe's to get food and drinks. I ventured over to the sample station as that was the area where I worked the most, and there she was, my future wife, my Mayan Bialik doppelganger. Story 58. A mutual friend I hadn't talked to in over 10 years set us up, and I wasn't looking for anything at the time. 12 years strong. Story 59. I met her at a music festival. I was there with a friend, and she was with a couple of friends. My friend and one of her friends hit it off almost instantly and started making out. They couldn't keep their hands off each other all night. At the end of the night, my friend dared us to kiss, and we did. We have been together for 17 years and married for 14 years. Story 60. High school. I transferred to a new school in my 3rd year, and my very first class was English. The teacher announced we would be doing a group activity. A guy in class asked right in front of everyone if he could be in a team with me. At the time, I had a boyfriend, so nothing came of it, and later on, he had a girlfriend too. 10 years later, around 2021, we reconnected on social media. He asked me out on a proper date, and the rest is history. We just sent out our save the dates for our wedding next year. Story 61. I met someone at school years ago. We barely spoke to each other but knew of each other and exchanged greetings a few times. Both of us left school and didn't communicate until 3 years ago when he matched with me on Hinge. It's been wonderful. Story 62. On the beach. We were from the same school since childhood and shared many friends, but we had never interacted with each other. Even my best friend's house, where I spent half my childhood, was next to hers. Story 63. First in her class at university, she was beautiful and funny, but serious when it came to studying. We didn't connect back then. 2 years later, one of her friends and one of my friends moved in together. We saw each other again at parties and started hanging out. We were both casually dating others and decided to be friends. A few months later, we stopped dating other people and began seeing each other. We are still together over 30 years later. Story 64. I ignored his message for a few days, and then we decided to meet at my university dorm. We had a fire drill, and the elevators were full of students, so he ran up 10 flights of stairs to avoid being late. We have been together for 21 years. Story 65. We play the same video game, Pokemon Go, and exchanged a few messages related to the game in the community Discord. I saw someone in the app battling a gym. It turned neutral and he dropped in. I took a screenshot of his character and sent it to him on Discord with an emoji. After that, I started flirting heavily, and the rest is history. Story 66. At a wedding in Rio de Janeiro, we started a long-distance relationship between Canada and Brazil that lasted for 2 years. She then moved to Canada and we got married. It has been 14 years now. Story 67. I was 6. She was almost 8. We attended school together until her 8th grade year and ran in similar circles through high school, but she moved out of state for college. We never had any romantic connection. She returned 10 years later, and we reconnected through a mutual friend. We quickly became reacquainted and have been inseparable for the last 5 years. Story 68. I was fascinated by boot babes back in the day when it was acceptable to refer to them as boot babes. She was a boot babe at a fair. I attempted to talk to her, but she dismissed me quickly. I took that as a challenge. Story 69. We were both unhappy in our marriages. I was in town working on a long-term engagement. We hooked up. When I kissed her, her foot popped up like in the movies. A week later, I got sick. I might have hooked up with a girl who ended up getting her tonsils removed. At the time, I was quite inconsiderate. The first woman made me a home-cooked dinner, bringing it in a container along with a care package of medicine and a new toothbrush. My then wife left me. My affair partner left her husband, who was diagnosed with cancer and passed away shortly after. We got married not long after that. My life did a complete turnaround. I couldn't be happier. Story 70. She knew my younger brother, but I didn't know her. We even attended the same high school, but my school had close to 7,000 students, so I had no idea who she was. Fast forward years later, I saw her at a party and told my best friend I was in love with her and needed to talk to her. He laughed when I got up to approach her and said, "You know her?" I quickly replied, "I'd never forget someone like her." It turned out I did know her, but it was only a passing acquaintance. She dismissed me when I asked her out because of my reputation. I later learned she had confessed to having a crush on me, but my younger brother had told her I was a womanizer, which was definitely not true. Eventually, I got her to go out with me, and I married her 3 years later. It has been the best 20 years of my life. Next year, I will have officially spent more of my life with her than without her. Story 71. Through a mutual friend who had a crush on him the entire time. She was upset when we got back together and cut us both off. We have been going strong for 4 years. Story 72. We met as co-workers at Target. She had a boyfriend at the time, but she always told me how cute she thought I was when we were together. 6 years later, she cheated on me with, you guessed it, her coworker who is a teacher. Story 73. I closed on a house on a Friday. I started using a dating app for the first and only time on Sunday. I began talking to a girl and we hit it off. She was the only girl I talked to on there. I asked if I could pick her up for dinner, and she gave me her address. She lived on the same block where I bought the house, just 5 houses down. We've been married for almost 4 years and have 2 wonderful boys. Life is great. Story 74. I posted in a social media group and he randomly added me. I messaged him to figure out why he added me, and he said he found me cute. We messaged for about a year, but he didn't show up for 2 dates I offered. The third time he set a date, I told him it better not be like the last 2 because I'm done wasting my time with people who can't commit. We've been together for more than 2 years now and are moving in together in June this year. Story 75. My wife and I have been friends since we were 11 years old, coming from the same neighborhood. We were not remotely interested in each other until our best friends started dating when we were around 21. They encouraged us to give it a try, so I kissed her, and she kissed me back passionately. That was the beginning of our relationship, and 34 years later, we are still going strong. Sometimes, I wonder what she sees in me, as I feel I don't deserve her. Story 76. I met my wife on Tinder about a week before COVID-19 became widespread. She moved in about 6 weeks later and started medical school out of state in June 2020. I joined her in summer 2021. We moved back home in 2022 and got married in 2023. Now she is a distinguished doctor in residency and doing incredibly well. Story 77. I first met her in the 8th grade. She was cute, but I had my eyes on other girls. We reconnected during our senior year of high school when she was dating a fellow track team member. We were never close. She went on to attend Texas Tech University in Lubbock and later got married. She returned to El Paso with her husband while he finished nursing school, but he changed his mind about having kids, and they eventually divorced. They had moved to some apartments near the grocery store where I worked. I used to have a name tag that had my name, and underneath it said, Checker Extraordinaire. Below that, it said Available, which had worked in the past. She started coming around more often, and I would arrange to carry out her groceries and talk at her car. We dated for about 5 years before we got married. 2 kids later, this year will mark our 40th anniversary. Story 78. Driver's education in 2-year relationships we didn't want to be in. We followed each other on social media and left it at that. He broke up with his girlfriend, I broke up with my boyfriend, and I sent him a text a few months later. Story 79. A directing class at university brought us together in the same group for our final project. His humor and silliness attracted me to him. We have been together for 17 years and married for almost 3 years. Story 80. While working overseas, I was a wide-eyed kid who had just turned 21. I met her 2 weeks after I landed in the country. It's been almost 15 years now. I tell people it took 21 years and 8,000 miles for me to find the love of my life. Story 81. She was married and having an affair with my best friend, who was also married. 3 months later, we met at a party where she made a point of telling me she was now divorced. She asked me out the next day. We've been married for 39 years. Story 82. When people used to ask this question, we exchanged uncomfortable looks before a deep sigh. Now, we anticipate how uncomfortable people will become when I start with, "So, my brother died. I fully believe my brother would find joy in this." Story 83. I met her in a mental health group home where we both worked as staff, although she was at a different facility. We saw each other at meetings and training sessions. She was quitting, and my manager asked if she wanted to try our group home, as the residents were much calmer than those at her current home. She later told me she had no intention of working at our group home. She was just hoping I would be there. I wasn't scheduled to work, but went in to do paperwork just to see her. I have been married for 28 years. Story 84. We were introduced by mutual friends at a holiday party. Dating applications were just becoming popular, so people were still being set up in the traditional way. Story 85. I met my ex-partner of 11 years and the mother of my 3 sons when we were in the psychiatric ward together. Because I am a silly person. Story 86. I was working in a hobby woodshop on a pen I was making when she came in asking for help fixing an old antique picture of her great-grandmother. I was the only one there, and after a few moments, she asked for assistance. I reassembled the pieces, glued them, and clamped everything together. While we waited for the glue to dry, I returned to making my pen. It was a swirled acrylic pen, and as we chatted, she looked over my shoulder and asked how much it would cost to buy it. Something deep inside me urged me to give it to her, so I pressed it together and handed it over with a smile. She took a piece of used sandpaper, wrote her number on the back, and gave it to me. I had just gone through a breakup and wasn't looking for anything. A day or so later, I texted her to ask how the frame was holding up, and she replied happily. We went on a few dates, and the rest is history. Our wedding picture hangs on the wall in the same frame I fixed, and we signed our marriage documents with that very same pen. We have been happily married for 16 years and have 3 amazing kids. It was truly a meeting of pure fate. Story 87. We met on a dating website 20 years ago, before there were mobile applications. We talked on the phone for about a week, then met in person in the town square of a small town. We kissed long and deeply before we spoke. We have been married for 15 years. Story 88. University dorm floor exchange picnic at a state park. One of the activities was flag football. I was the quarterback and she was on my team. I found out that she was the only girl on my team who could actually catch a football. We exchanged telephone numbers. A week later, the 2 floors had a pumpkin carving exchange on their dorm floor. She made sure she was my partner. Turns out she had a bet with her roommate that she could get me to their dorm room for a beer. She won that bet easily. Over 50 years later, we are still together with 48 years of marriage. Story 89. I walked into a bank where she was working. I had just been released from prison and had a note stating I was cleared to be in that specific bank between 4 p.m. and 4:15 p.m. only. I handed her the note, and she thought I was trying to rob the place. I wasn't. I just wanted to cash the check I had received. To her credit, I did look like someone who was up to no good. That was 19 years ago. We are married and have a great relationship. I love her very much. Story 90. I was dating her best friend, and it was a dead-end relationship. One day, she came over with her friend, and 27 years later, we are still together. Story 91. I got on Hinge and swiped right on a bearded man holding a big fish next to his cute dog. People often criticize men who hold fish, but I see it as a hobby that also provides food for me. Story 92. We both worked at a company together, but since it was so large, we didn't know each other. We had a mutual friend who was engaged, but the engagement fell through, and he was devastated. He emailed us asking if we could meet him for drinks at the bar downstairs after work. Our mutual friend decided to cancel at the last minute, but I messaged her and asked if we could still meet up for a drink afterward, which we did. 15 years later, married for 13 years with 2 kids, we're still together. Story 93. I was driving at night and stopped at a red light. I opened the app quickly, saw her, and liked her. After 8 years together, we got married in February. She saved my life. Everything I have become today is a result of her support. I love her so much. Story 94. In a courtroom, I was articling and representing a client during tenancy mediation, so we exchanged numerous emails until we met in person. Looking back, I think we even emailed each other for fun after we completed our work with the mutual client. Almost a year later, I attended a mutual friend's birthday party, not realizing we both knew this friend, and we reconnected. In that moment, Toronto felt incredibly small. Story 95. I started a job as an X-ray technician, and she was a student who graduated the year after me also as an X-ray technician. She had a boyfriend at the time, so I had to be patient. It was a real Jim and Pam situation. We just got married in October 2024. Story 96. We met on the campus bus during our 3rd year of undergraduate studies. She had just arrived in the country and didn't have a phone, so I asked for her email. Later, I ran into her at the school cafeteria by chance and asked her out on the spot. She accepted, and that was it. We've been married for 7 years. I'm happy, and she says she is too, but she can tell that her friends' partners surpass me in every way. We're both still young, so I hope she'll eventually meet the one. Story 97. We started talking a couple of days before he left for a 2-week vacation to Japan. We communicated constantly throughout the entire trip, time zone difference aside. I would wake up and call him in the morning while he was getting ready to go to sleep. While I was preparing for bed, I would video call him, and we explored the streets of Japan together. The same day he arrived back, he drove an hour just to meet me, and we sat and talked for hours. We've been together for about 6 months now, and are planning to go to Japan together at the end of the year to celebrate our 1st anniversary. Story 98. I lived in an apartment across the street from where she worked, and we matched. We have been inseparable ever since. We are close to 3 years together. Story 99. experience at a beer festival in East London. After a one-night stand, we actually spoke to each other the next morning. With a large house by the sea and 2 kids, we still enjoy attending the beer festival and having fun together at a hotel as an annual event. Story 100. I was on eHarmony for 3 years before meeting her. I probably had 100 matches, which led to 50 conversations, 10 dates, and maybe 3 people with whom I had second dates. About a month before my account was set to expire, I started talking to a really cool girl who I met in person on January 18th, 2016, for our first date. We've been married for 7 years this July. She's the love of my life, and I couldn't be happier. Story 101. I met him in the neighborhood where I hung out. We dated for a couple of weeks, but sadly, I had to move. However, I moved back, and 4 years later, my sister saw him on my yearbook. We've been together ever since, starting in 2012, and we have 4 beautiful children. Story 102. On Facebook, an unintended friend request was sent to me. She thought I had sent her one when it turned out I was in the People You May Know section. I only accepted her request because she was mutual friends with 28 people I knew personally. When I saw her profile, I wondered if I had ever met her. My immediate thought was that I would not forget someone like her, as she was very attractive. Apparently, my face appeared at the top of her feed, and she felt the same way about me, even though it was one of the worst pictures of me, in my opinion. A few days later, she started chatting with me. We eventually met about 2 weeks after that initial conversation. We became inseparable, got married 4 months later, and here we are almost 6 years later. Facebook was the last place I thought I would meet my soulmate. Story 103. I first met her at a bar. I asked if I could get her phone number and go out sometime, but she told me to leave her alone. The next time I saw her at the bar, I asked again, and she told me the same thing. When I saw her again at the bar, I asked if I could take her out to lunch for some good conversation. This time, she said yes. We have been married for 17 years. Story 104. On February 4th, 2017, I participated in a post your speaking voice thread on Facebook. I posted, and he recorded himself reading the first chapter of Winnie the Pooh to me. We ended up talking nonstop. 10 months later, we were living together, and we got married on February 4th, 2020. Story 105. We left the private group and are still in love 13 years later. Story 106. Go-karting was an ironic experience for us, as we both nearly didn't go for different reasons, but we ended up going anyway. I knew as soon as I laid eyes on her that I was going to marry her, and I did. This July marks 10 years of marriage. Story 107. I went to get a haircut at the local salon. The hairstylist was beautiful and very pregnant. Fast forward 7 years. I was in the local salon, getting my hair cut by the now single, beautiful mother of 2. It's been 25 years now, and it was quite a haircut. Story 108. Oh boy, it's so embarrassing. We met in a video game called Phasmophobia. We became close friends, but then he came to my defense, flew me across the country, married me, and now we have a 7-month-old. Story 109. I was 17 and he was 18. I participated in drama, and he did the technical work for my shows at college. We started talking because I asked everyone in the tech group for their Instagram accounts so I could get his. We began speaking, I developed feelings for him, and I didn't think he liked me, so I entered a friends with benefits situationship, but we stopped talking as much. This didn't last long. He was 22 at the time. I realized how strange it was and called it off. Then we started talking again. He did the technical work for my next show a month later. I told him that I liked him and had for a while, and he replied, "It's a good thing I feel the same." We got together and have been together for 5 years, engaged for 6 months. Our wedding is next year. Story 110. She watched my YouTube channel and sent me a direct message. She happened to be close to my hometown, and when I visited home, I stopped by to see her. Well, it was history from there. Story 111. We sat opposite each other on a ferry in Venice, Italy. We both knew immediately. I'm from Germany, and he is Canadian. I moved to Canada a year later and have been here for 18 years now. Story 112. I was friends with the dorky, laid-back boys, and she was one of the academically focused girls in college. Our close friend helped bridge the gap between our groups. My first time experimenting with psychedelics, I saw my friend in the dorm hallway and ran up to him, excitedly sharing how much fun I was having. I interrupted his conversation with a girl, and when I realized, I apologized. But I stopped midway through a word, transfixed by what I believed was an angel. Our groups became friends, but I was so worried about coming off as creepy that I never made a move until her best friend pulled me aside, asking if I liked her and convincing me to pursue her, knowing full well the feelings were mutual. It still took me about 3 weeks to ask her out. Now, 9 years later, I'm about to pop the question. Story 113. My current boyfriend and I met through a mutual friend during our university days. I have a female friend whom I met at a nightclub, and we became friends instantly. Ever since then, I started hanging out with her every weekend. She then casually invited me to dinner with her other group of friends, and that's how I met my boyfriend. The group she introduced me to became my main circle of friends during university, and most of them later became my housemates. My boyfriend became my closest male friend in that group. I have always told my friend that she was our matchmaker, as she helped create another couple in the same way that my boyfriend and I met through that friend group. Now, 5 to 6 years later, we are both working and still together. Story 114. During a school trip in our junior year of high school, a mutual friend introduced us. We did everything together and skipped the awkward phase of getting to know each other, jumping straight into being best friends. After returning from the trip, we started hanging out at school and then outside of school. I visited his house and he visited mine. My ex was a little jealous of how well we were getting along, but there were no feelings involved except for friendship, so it was fine for us to hang out. Eventually, he realized he liked me. On New Year's Eve, he confessed his feelings, and I broke up with my ex. At our prom, we finally started dating after a month of sorting things out. Now we're a couple, and he's much happier and healthier. He even quit drinking alcohol and partying hard because he was afraid of hurting me while drunk. I can say the same about myself. I realized I didn't know what love actually was, and now I can say I am in love. Additionally, I realized there were signs and many invisible connections tying us together, such as his family living in my neighborhood, the gala we both attended as freshmen. We didn't know each other back then and have a picture together. His mom teaching my ex history, numerous mutual friends, and him often ending up at the same places as me. Even my favorite chemistry teacher did not get along with him. There were also signs like his favorite song playing when a car in his favorite color with his initials on the license plate passed by, or a random Jurassic Park sticker on the ground near the place of our first hangout. He has a particular fondness for dinosaurs. Story 115. We attended high school together, and I had a huge crush on her but never had the courage to talk to her. 11 years later, we matched on a dating app and have been inseparable since. Story 116. I knew of him in high school and had a bit of a crush on him, but I knew he was way out of my league. On March 21st, 2021, he messaged me at 2 a.m. asking, "Sleepless night or night owl?" We started talking nonstop and became best friends. About a year later, we started dating and have been together since. High school me never would have thought I would have a chance with him, but here I am. Story 117. I went with a friend to a local bar. He and his best friend sat at a table, and we asked if we could buy them drinks. That settled the greetings, and afterwards he came to my house and tucked me into bed because I was intoxicated. We were together for 2 years and split up 5 years ago. Story 118. Selling drugs together. That's what we tell people just to see their reaction. We met at a small-town drugstore in 1992. The 30-year anniversary is this fall. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.